I will hand it over to Mike to get us started.
Hi, everybody. Hey, thank you very much for taking the time today to join for our first town hall. This is an opportunity that we're trying out. It's a new, well, it's not opportunity, it's a new format that we're trying out um, uh, that really came out of the planning process that I'd like to just briefly share with you. So after the Tsuru Rising event I guess it was June now, when we couldn't go to Washington, D.C., and we pivoted to go online with a national program and protest against detention and also state violence targeting um, people of African descent here in the United States. What we realized was that we needed to understand what is the path forward for Tsuru for Solidarity. So we embarked upon a very sort of systemic and multi-tiered assessment and sort of survey of the Japanese American community, trying to understand what was the feeling of the community about our work. And we interviewed 200 people one-on-one. We did focus groups in gosh, 3 or 4 different focus groups. And we talked to community partners and community stakeholders. And then we also, meaning like organizations in the Japanese American community. And then we formed what we called working groups. And these were groups that were set up around priorities that you all communicated to us. This is what we want Tsuru for Solidarity to focus on. These are issues that are important to the Japanese American community. Those areas were family and child detention, adult detention, policing, and prisons was the second group. A third group was reparations for people of African heritage in the United States regarding slavery and its legacy. And a fourth area was a continuation of the healing work and the healing circles of Tsuru for Solidarity. We then sort of realized there was a fifth area that we thought was important, which was around community building, continued community building in the Japanese American community, sort of activist area. And the reason that we added the last part was because what we realized was that in our community conversation series that happened over the summer and the fall, many people were reflecting back to us, this has been a way for me to connect back to the Japanese American community. And in some cases, people had not been connected to our community for decades even. And people were starting to come back and wanting to have conversations about their own experience as people of Japanese American heritage. And so we decided to create the community building priority as well. So those 4 or actually 5 working groups met 3 times to talk about, for instance, let me give you an example. In the area of family and child detention, they began talking about a vision about what the work could look like going forward. And each of those areas of work did that in December. And we then gathered their thinking, and we helped form a new structure. And I'll let Lisa explain that. What I'll just finish by saying is that over that process that really started in about late July and went all the way to the end of 2020, late December, we sort of heard from a lot of people. And what we tried to do then was to figure out a plan going forward for Tsuru for Solidarity for the next 18 months in the areas of family and child detention, in the area of prisons, policing, and surveillance and adult detention, in the area of healing and healing circles, and in the area of community building. So we have now launched sort of back with a new structure where we've actually launched it about 3 weeks ago. And Lisa's going to explain a little bit more what that looks like and how that's going. I'm really excited about it. And this town hall, which will meet quarterly, is an outcome of the whole process and part of our new structure. The town hall is really an open forum that we're trying to have quarterly where anyone can come and join in and connect to Tsuru, learn about the work that's happening, learn about current campaigns and the work of committees and working groups. And it's basically a way to get connected and get updated on the exciting work that people are figuring out. We're also, in this new structure, we really wanted to create a more horizontal structure where more people were having leadership decision input. So we're trying to have more community input in the decisions. Also, more places where more people can get connected to Tsuru and find ways into the work of the movement to affect change in the society. So with that, I'll hand it back to Lisa. And I just want to say it's really exciting to see everyone. And thanks again for being here today. Really glad to be together.
Thanks so much, Mike. That was really helpful. I put 2 links in the chat where you can maybe read more about the things that I'm going to talk about. One is our new Get Involved page on our website. As Mike mentioned, one of the hopes is that, you know, the pathways into Tsuru become clearer, and hopefully this is one way. And then I also put in the chat a really beautiful path forward that a graphic artist based in Chicago named Corey Nakamura-Lin worked on. And I'm going to screen share that now, but that's also one of the links in the chat if you'd like to take a look at it. So let me get myself set up. All right, so I won't go through all of the document, but just it's pretty brief. And again, we'll put it in the chat. We'll share it afterwards. But we just have I want to look at page 2 and 3. So Mike mentioned some of our priority areas, and you can read more about these different areas. You know, family and child detention is really the issue area that Tsuru for Solidarity first mobilized around, and will always be at the core of the work that we're doing, particularly as we're still trying to push for the end of family and child detention facilities, which has not happened yet. And so I'm looking forward to continuing to work with all of you to ensure that we can get these facilities shut down. As Mike mentioned, other areas of focus are around healing, police, prisons, detention, redress and reparations, and community building, amongst others. But these are sort of much of the work that Tsuru for Solidarity is focusing on falls in these categories. And then the other thing that I wanted to highlight from this document is a little bit about sort of collaboration and ways, entry points into Tsuru for Solidarity. So one of those is exactly what you're doing right now in these quarterly town halls, which are hopefully going to be a chance to share back on what we've done in the previous few months. After I stop talking, you'll hear from a few upcoming campaigns that we have that you can get involved in the next coming months. So hopefully that's sort of what we're able to communicate through the town halls. We also have new working groups, committees, and affinity groups. More information on those is in this document. And then also at the very end of the meeting, we'll share in the chat a sign-up form or an interest form if you're interested in getting more involved in one of the working groups, committees, or affinity groups. And we'll also have breakout time, optional breakout time, in about 30 minutes where you can learn more about what these groups are doing. So you'll have a time to sort of hear from folks in those groups, ask questions if you have any. And so we'll do that again in about 30 minutes. And then finally, if you read this report, you can also take a look at our finances from last year as well as our finances from this year. So I'm going to stop screen sharing. And again, I will bump the links in the chat, and we'll send these links to you as well via email afterwards for those of you who registered, so you can continue to take a look at them if afterwards, if you want to explore them more. So with that, I will hand it. I think I'm going to hand it back to JJ, but maybe I'm handing it to Mike to do updates on our campaigns.
Sure, I'm actually happy to speak about that. So part of the town halls, as Lisa and I previously mentioned, will be to give people updates about current work that we're prioritizing. And oh, sorry, there you go. Now you can see me. Part of what we're going to do now is to give you some updates on the work that we're currently involved in and projects that are being launched right now. And the purpose of this is to give you a sense of maybe that's something that you might like to be connected to in one of the committees. So maybe I'll start first since I'm on that list to explain one project. So I'm going to talk to you about the Spokesperson Bureau or group that we're developing. What we know from national research is that the Japanese American narrative story is actually very powerful and receptive to people in messaging. So when our community cites our own narrative history around incarceration and state violence, actually people respond very well to us as spokespeople. And so what we're doing is developing a messaging strategy around ending family and child detention and detention in general. And so in order to do that, we're developing a spokesperson group. And this will be multi-generational. We're centering the voices of our own camp survivors in the center of that work. Satsuki Ina is leading that portion, and we have a pretty good group so far who's already signed on to participate there. There are a few more spaces left, however. So if you're a camp survivor and you're interested in doing spokesperson work, or for instance, meeting with members of Congress to talk about detention legislation and other advocacy issues, or maybe speaking to reporters, things like that. Please, you can contact us here in the chat, or a very easy thing you can do is to write to us at our email, tsuruforsolidarity@gmail.com. When we do a follow-up and send the planning process document after this today's town hall, we'll give you a reminder about how you can sign up for any of these projects, and you can do that through the email. So this spokesperson group will focus on detention, child and family detention primarily. And there are two bills that are coming up in Congress very shortly. Actually, we expect them to be dropped within the week or in 2 weeks. Senator Merkley of Oregon is introducing a bill to end child and family detention. Senator Jayapal is his co-lead on that bill in the House of Representatives. She also has her own legislative bill called the Dignity Act for Detained Immigrants, which is a more overarching piece of legislation to combat detention of people in the United States. Both of those pieces of legislation need advocacy. So we are going to be helping to lead the national effort on that. Tsuru for Solidarity is part of the National Family Liberation Table. That's a group of organizations, litigators, and policy advocates that are coming together across the sectors in this moment to unite to try to end child and family detention. So we've been asked to help lead the messaging strategy and fight on that. So our speakers group, our spokespersons group, is going to be really important. Our advocacy committee, our Tsuru committee, Tsuru folding committee, and the leadership in our family and child detention work group will be really, and communications committee will all be sort of helping to lead that work. So if you were interested in being a spokesperson or being connected to helping build a messaging strategy nationally, we'd really invite you to join any one of those committees. Or if you want to be a spokesperson, please let us know. We're also accepting younger folks too, not just survivors. We're particularly interested in descendants of survivors who are interested in doing spokesperson work. So we want to have multi-generational representation of the community in this work. We're talking to our national partners such as Haitian Bridge Alliance, Grassroots Leadership, and other organizations, United We Dream, Center for Constitutional Rights, who are interested in partnering with us in this messaging strategy campaign. So this will be kind of a united community front. I think that's probably, we should move on to the next campaign issue. But if you are interested in that, please consider joining one of the groups that will support that, or you can join the actual working group that will help strategize that work. That's the Family and Child Detention Working Group. Next, let's hear about the work around reparations.
Thanks, Mike. I'm just going to do a quick, sorry you're hearing so much of Mike and me, but I'm just going to do a quick plug for our a forum that's coming up on Wednesday, which is in partnership with the ACLU, Tsuru for Solidarity, the National African American Reparations Commission, and COBRA, and JACL and NCRR. So if you, I'm trying to get myself ready to screen share to just show the forum flyer. But if you're interested, it's just going to be live streamed, so you do not need to register for this event. But if you're interested in attending, you can tune into aclu.org/reparations on Wednesday, March 24th at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And I will just leave the flyer up for one more second if you want to take a look at it. And then I will pass it back.
Thank you, Lisa. Now, perhaps we could hear about a national Tsuru Fold-In campaign that our Tsuru Fold-In committee is going to lead. So Nancy Ukai, Jerry Honda, maybe you can now give a report on the Fold-In campaign.
Hi, I'm Nancy Ukai. I'm based in Berkeley, and thanks very much, everybody, for being here. I prepared a PowerPoint that Jerry and I would like to share. So let me try and do this. And basically, Lisa and Mike haven't talked about this yet, I don't believe, but there is this campaign coming up next month called First 10 Communities Not Cages Week of Action. And our Crane Committee, which is about 15 of us, and we're in Northern California, Southern California, and Chicago. And by the way, if you're interested in joining, please contact Lisa. But as you know, last year we planned to take 125,000 small folded cranes to Washington, D.C., representing all of the people who were incarcerated during World War II. In addition, we wanted to take 100 giant cranes. And here's some examples of the way we use the small cranes in Dilley, Texas, in 2019 at Fort Sill. These are just, a few examples. Seattle Day of Action. And then recently the Kawanos folded 20,000 tsuru in Sacramento and just finished this month. So at any rate, the giant cranes were sort of something that our committee member, Henry Kaku, introduced to us, and he uses 7-foot by 7-foot paper. And we've used them publicly, like in the San Francisco DOR. This is at Tsuru Rising in Tanforan, California last year. Basically, we love the kind of dynamism, the more muscular tsuru. It's like a big canvas that we can write messages on. And so another example was a large crane which during COVID, we asked people if they wanted to just not fold a crane, but just glue on one, and told them, we will be carrying these big cranes in public protests, add your voice. Akemi Ina painted a really beautiful graphic crane, Black Lives Matter, and I also did one, I Can't Breathe, for Tan Fran last year. So we've been folding these, and we have about 10 or so. And what we're thinking is perhaps for the Detention Watch Network action, that we can work together to make giant paper and then fold them into cranes and use them in some way, virtually, publicly, either at actions. And literally our small committee started talking about it this morning. So we don't have any answers. We have a lot of ideas, and we're thinking that we can expand our cranes to other communities, because Japanese Americans are kind of used to folding cranes. We've got nearly 300,000 now, but these giant cranes offer a different opportunity. Jerry, would you please talk about this? I'm sorry I've talked so much. Jerry actually had this idea this morning. Jerry Honda is in Albany, California, and she and I are co-chairs together, the Tsuru committee. Jerry?
Hey, hi everybody. I'm still looking at all the beautiful photos that Nancy was able to put together. Well, our Tsuru committee has been meeting with the Child in Detention working group, and it's been fantastic. Just meeting with them, just exchanging ideas. And one of the ideas that we came up with was, besides this idea, was working together with them in a Tsuru folding with their partners, in doing a special fold in with them, and to teach them how to fold cranes. And they seem to be excited about it, so we were looking forward to that. And especially when it comes to the Tsuru, you know, it's a personal and very heartfelt message that you send when you fold. And I think people feel that connection. And when you do this, you share your support in any action. And I think it's very powerful. And you can do it anywhere. And I think that's the message that we want to send. And the giant tsurus are just a way to emphasize in a very dynamic and visual way this message as well. So we're excited about this. And we're planning to do other fold-ins that will be announced later. So much.
Thank you, Lisa, and everybody, and to Linda Morris and Becca Asaki for leading the family and detention group.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Jerry. I'll just share a few more details about the fold-in idea. In a moment when there is an expansion, not a reduction, of child and family detention, where we're seeing influx facilities being planned and built across the country, and there are more children in detention now than there have been in years, unaccompanied minors. There's a request or a need across the movement space to respond and push back very hard right now. So we've been asked to initiate a Tsuru fold-in with our national partners, led by our Tsuru committee, to basically ask people to fold cranes with messages in support of children who are being detained right now, and to send them to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. We're in conversations with a number of national partners right now, and we're working with the Tsuru and the comms committees, and we'll be putting out a campaign strategy for this very soon. So please keep your eye open for that, because this will be not just a Japanese American community campaign, but it's going to involve many communities across the country. We're pretty excited about it, actually. So stay tuned on that, and we'll keep you abreast. Let's go ahead and move to another area of work. And is April Gore here? Maybe you could talk about the abolition study group.
Yeah, Casey and I were going to rep the police, prisons, and detention working group. So this is a space to share knowledge, tools, and strategies across regions on community safety. At our last meeting, we discussed creating structures that make our community safer than they currently are, and we felt that this meant critically evaluating how we define crime and how we prevent and respond to harm. Our goal is to abolish punitive ideas at all levels of society and instead transform harm into accountability, repair, and healing. We believe that redistributing resources that are currently allocated to police, prisons, and the military-industrial complexes for community service will achieve this goal. And I'll pass it to Casey to talk about our study group.
Yeah, thanks, April. So one example of our work is our collaboration with the Chicago-based Nikkei Uprising and the New York City-based New York Day of Remembrance Committee to facilitate a 6-session monthly Nikkei abolition study group, where we gather to engage the Japanese American community in an ongoing dialogue about the abolition of policing, surveillance, detention, and incarceration, and to build an abolitionist framework to inform and guide our organizing efforts. We hope that you will all join us in our efforts to build services that replace harmful structures with a safer community. Our working group welcomes all folks with experiences and backgrounds and familiarity in policing work. And we really just hope that this space can be one of learning and community while we tackle complex issues related to community safety.
Thank you very much, Casey and April. Because I'm very excited about this group, I want to interview you a little bit. Can you say like what this would look like? How would I participate if I were interested? What would those meetings look like? And do I have to read a lot, or do I have to know a lot to start this? Because I don't know very much about any of this. Can you fill me in a little more on that?
Sure. So we've planned out about 6 sessions right now, and each one hones in on like a very more specific question underneath the broad umbrella of abolition. You don't have to, do a bunch of homework. We're going to be beginning each session with a review of the materials that we provided. So obviously it'd be great if you read or listen to as much as you can, but we hope to make the material as accessible as possible. And I'm going to drop a interest form link. And Casey, please let me know if I'm missing anything.
Great. So if folks click on that link in the chat, then they can sign up to be a part of this group. Yes. Okay, good.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And, I'll just say that abolition is a new word for a lot of us, and we're not that familiar with what it means. And I think sometimes it's a scary word for people. It feels very like extreme to people. But what I want to just say is that this is a chance to learn about something, and you don't have to agree with anything about these ideas. It's really a chance to learn and have conversation and be in community together. And I love the impetus that came out of the 2 groups that are hosting this, which was how do we as a community keep ourselves and our communities safer? How do we help bring more resources to self-care and community care and cross-community care? Safer together in a time when, as we know, as Asians and Pacific Islander people, we're experiencing a tremendous escalation in violence. And how do we meet that as communities and not just rely on the state to protect us? So I think it's a really interesting opportunity for us to get together and start having these conversations. So thank you very much to your working group for leading this, and this is open to anybody who's interested. So we hope everyone will take advantage of the opportunity. So now let's go ahead and move to one more group, which is, and I'm going to ask JJ to speak about this, which is the healing circles, which have been such a pillar and central force in our transformative work in Tsuru for Solidarity. It's been part of our work from the very beginning. JJ, can you talk a little bit more about the ongoing work of the healing circles and the trainings that you're all setting up?
Thanks, Mike. I think Katie is actually going to speak on this.
That's right. Thanks, JJ and Mike. Tsuru for Solidarity has been conducting healing circles to create a safe space for people to share some part of their story and to listen to one another with empathy. The circles grew organically following our Tsuru for Solidarity protest actions in Texas and Oklahoma. Diverse groups came together to share personal stories of the trauma of oppression with each other across historical, racial, religious, and cultural barriers. The sharing allowed a sense of solidarity many had not experienced before. Through the simple act of listening with one's full attention, commonalities are shared, differences can be appreciated, and our humanness, our humanity shines through. People feel connected to one another and more resilient. Through the circles, we have seen healing from what has intentionally divided our communities of colors by systems of power dominating those who are vulnerable and powerless. We have seen that speaking up for one another, standing up for one another in the face of injustice, can be one of the most powerful tools for social change. We are excited to expand our healing circles and would like to invite interested Black, Indigenous, and people of color to consider becoming facilitators. We seek folks who are compassionate role models in this healing process so that people will be feeling safe enough to speak about what is true for each of us through our customs, culture, language, traditions, and stories. Experience in facilitating communities of color is helpful, but it's not a requirement. Even though much healing has occurred, please know that Healing Circles for Change is not group therapy. We have found that such exchanges deepen our understanding across communities, across generations, and strengthen our voices, solidarity, and fight against oppression and racism. The sense of community gives us hope so we can move from collective trauma to collective empowerment. If you're interested in becoming a facilitator for the healing circles, we have a limited number of spaces for next weekend's training. One is on the 27th and one on the 28th. The deadline happens to be today, so let us know if you're interested. And if you don't make our current training, we'll put you on a wait list for another training which hasn't yet been scheduled. Another way to get involved in our organization is by joining our Healing Circles committee. Our committee discusses the future path of healing circles and reach out to other BIPOC communities. We plan and lead circles after our participation in a program, event, or action for social justice. We recruit and train new facilitators, and we are a dedicated, caring, and fun group of volunteers, and we welcome new folks to join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Wow, so this is a sampling of some of the current work that is developing and ongoing in Tsuru for Solidarity. If you are interested in any of these projects, please reach out through the links, or you can also write to us at tsuruforsolidarity@gmail.com, and we'll make sure you get connected to the right people. Every group is looking for new members, and in this sort of new structure that we're launching, we're really trying to involve as many folks as possible. And so we really welcome you to explore, to participate, and to join in. Many hands make light work. So with that, I'm going to pass back to JJ.
Okay, Mike and everybody who shared. Um, I'm gonna go guide people through a short self-massage sequence for about 5 minutes. So feel free to modify anything so it works for your body. For me, I think the main point is to notice and remember that I have a body, and also to show some care toward it. And so you can turn your camera off if you want, or you can keep it on. And yeah, we'll just get started. Um, so we can start by putting some attention in our bodies. You can pay attention to your breath, just observing it. You don't have to change anything about it. You can feel the clothes on your skin, contact with the chair, your feet on the ground. And then just take a moment to notice where you might feel any tension or sensations in your body. And then go ahead and gently press your open palms and fingers on your face. So you can push on your cheeks gently, your forehead, your chin, and lips. Many of us do a lot of communicating with our faces, so all these muscles do that work. You can move into placing the pads of your fingers onto your forehead and then doing little circles. And you can move your fingers to your temples. Use a pressure that's comfortable for you. Do slow circles here. And then you can move to below your cheekbones to get your jaw muscles between like your cheek and your chin. You can do circles here or any back and forth motions. I've definitely noticed carrying a lot of tension in my jaw lately. And then you can reach over with one hand and squeeze your opposite shoulder. If you can't reach your shoulder, you can also do your forearm or your hand and just squeeze and release a few times. And you can switch sides, squeeze on the other shoulder or arm. Just repeat that a few times. And then to finish up, you can go ahead and just kind of brush down your shoulder or your arm. And you can think about kind of brushing some tension out of your body. And yeah, and then that's it. Come back and thanks for doing that. I think yeah, now we're gonna go into breakout rooms. And let's see, maybe Lisa can explain how to enter the breakout rooms.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm going to hand it back over to JJ and Allie to wrap us up.
Go for it, Allie.
Yeah, we just wanted to thank everyone for joining us today and learning more about Tsuru and its next and its new structures. I also want to give a shout out and thank all of the organizers who put this together and presented information today. And yeah, we hope that you can get involved in Tsuru in the upcoming events and things and get plugged in. But yeah, also Lisa, I think, is creating a Google Forms that you can fill out to get involved in some of the committees or working groups. So please be sure to fill that out, as well as check out the new Get Involved page on Tsuru's website. So those are definitely places that you can learn more and definitely get more involved. And yeah, I just want to thank you everyone again, and I want to be conscious of your times. But yeah, thank you for all the discussions. They were very engaging, and I hope everyone stays safe and healthy during these times. So yeah, I don't know if anyone else has any last words.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
どうもありがとう。
どうもありがとうございます。Be safe, everybody.
Thank you. Be safe.
Safe.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Serve each other.
Thank
you. Excited to build power with you all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.